Thank you. As long as it's streaming, we should be good. Good?
Ready?
Yep.
Brett Eady,
Yep.
Bob Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Hancock.
Yes.
Di Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Alex Sheda.
Yes.
Renee Philmeyer. Yes.
Okay, pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recognition of the open meetings law, there's a copy on the wall. Approval of the agenda. That was sent out. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? Chris?
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Renee. Yes. Brett,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Any changes or anything needs to be amended on the board minutes from the February meeting? Or excuse me, February?
March.
March meeting. You know, it's like-
I might have clicked on
It's okay. We'll get there, okay? Thank you. Do we vote on the minutes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, approve the minutes, we do.
You're not voting?
No,
Okay.
just the agenda.
Thank you. And any changes to the minutes that we, no, regular?
I move to approve. Thank you.
Second. Any discussion? Chris?
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Renee. Yes. Brett.
Yes. List of claims were sent out. Any questions on the claims? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on those said claims? Chris, whenever you're ready.
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Renee. Yes. Brett,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Treasurer's report, any questions?
I don't know if it's appropriate to raise the issue here, but BBH's invoices, do you prefer to hold that for the facility update
Yeah,
discussion?
we can talk about that.
Treasurer's report, any questions? On to policy review.
Okay, in the interest of time, as you can see, as I share those chapters out, they're fairly lengthy, it's a lot of reading. I will share with you what the policy committee has gone through in terms of red line copies, anything with significant changes to them, anything with minor wording adjustments that may or may not have significant impact on that policy, probably not here, though I can definitely share it out later if there's interest in it. So if we start with 4003, I'm not reading through it word for word, I'm just gonna hit where we've kind of made some adjustments. So the school district designated superintendent may be contacted at the phone number regarding drug policy with drivers. You can see in the way the original policy was written was no driver shall report for duty if they've got alcohol in excess of 0.04 in their bloodstream. We changed that to 0.00. The reason it was at 0.04 is that's actually coming from federal regulations that is allowable. The committee chose to back that down to 0, which I fully support. Same thing down below, went from 0.02, between 0.02 and 0.04, back down to 0. You go further down on page 4, it says medical resource officer, but in the text it refers to a medical review review officer. So we changed them both, so it's medical review officer, no confusion as to who is doing the work. Last paragraph, you'll see medical review officer again, 4003. If there's, and committee, if there's anything I'm missing or anything you want to add, please interrupt and we'll discuss through it. 4009, restrictions on employees receiving gratuities. Needed to put a dollar amount in there. The dollar amount selected was $100 individually or $200 cumulatively. So the idea was if I were to give Chris up to $100 as an individual, that would be okay without any sort of disclosure and receipt, any of that. However, if you had a compact of parents that wanted to do something nice for Chris, and we each did $100, that would be fine under this, except for the cumulative portion. If we each did $100, now it suddenly becomes $600-700. That's something that would need to be disclosed. Not necessarily anything done with, other than, hey, this happened. Make sense there? Okay. Staff internet computer use. If you go down to, let's see, those two, never mind, I'm not gonna hit on that one. The only change to that, it's the same policy that we have, the only thing is internet was capitalized part of the time and lowercase part of the time, so I just cleaned it up. On grievance procedure, 4013, if you'll go to page 3 at the top. The district fails to answer within the time limit set forth by the agreement, the grievance shall automatically proceed to the next step, and the time period shall run from the date the response was due to the grievant. Still, so what that's saying is if the district missed a timeline, then timelines would continue to flow. So if it were a response from the principal, the timeline for the superintendent would still be in place, timeline for the board, so on and so forth. I do want to review this with the committee a little bit, because the issue came in talking to legal is what happens if a teacher sends an email to a principal that is not clear, indescript in what it's meaning. The teacher meant it to be a formal grievance filing. The principal interpreted it to be, hey, heads up, this is going on. And those timelines have moved along. You could be beyond superintendent before anybody would even know exactly what's going on. So having a way to clean that up a little bit, I'm going to go back to the committee and visit about that a little bit more. But just making it clear that if timelines are missed, we still have to move this process along.
But doesn't the grievant have to elevate it to the next level? So it isn't something, it doesn't march automatically. What happens is if they don't like the response or they don't get one, then they have to take action. So if that's how it works and they don't take action, they miss their timeline.
Yeah, I will clarify with Bobby because we had that discussion. So we'll come back to that one. I will clean it up. 4019, Workplace Injury Prevention and Safety Committee. You'll see there's several changes. It's more a reordering of information. Renee, do you want to comment anything on this? These were kind of your recommendations here.
Tell me which one.
4019, I apologize.
Oh, honestly, this was just more for readability. There was a lot of redundancy in the policy, so I don't think there were substantive changes. It was just, let's not say things twice. Let's say it one time. That's what these red lines are.
Yep. Which you have in front of you. 4029, salary schedule. If you'll go down on the bottom of page 1, superintendent's review. Superintendent shall review all requests for advancement on the salary schedule resulting from the teachers acquiring additional teaching experience or completion of college courses. The original, what they presented said, and shall report all changes to the Board of Education annually. We haven't done that in the past. There wasn't a huge push to do that going forward necessarily. So it is stricken at this point. If somebody desperately interested, I'd be happy to visit about that. But as far as sharing on a yearly basis, that's kind of up to you guys. 4030, evaluation of certificated employees. While it's small, it is significant. What is written here is probationary teachers are evaluated twice per year, and full-time, we'll call them tenured, though that's not what the policy says, but teachers that are beyond probationary evaluated at least once every 2 years. Our current policy and practice says once every 3 years. We talked a little bit about everybody every year. This is where we landed for now. This policy can always be amended sometime in the future. So at least once every 2 years, every employee will see an evaluation. Overtime compensatory time. I share this, though this could be in the handbook and we would not have to have it in policy. Since we just do overtime, we could put that in policy or in the handbook. If we were honoring compensatory time, there was a recommendation that we definitely have it in policy as well. You'll see a slight change at the bottom, calculating in accordance with the preceding paragraph. I think it's something that we'll figure out within the handbook later on, but I did want to put this one in front of you. Go ahead.
Brandon, since
Yep.
we don't do it, does it make more sense for us to remove any reference to compensatory time?
We will remove it all and just reference overtime in the
Yeah.
handbook.
Because this almost seems like
Correct.
it's an option.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that is my intention. I just want to make sure everybody has everything in front of them.
It's a staff side.
Yep. 4051, staff social media use. Just getting this in front of you so you know that a policy does exist or will exist. It's something that we're going to do more work with, especially any reference to official looking, sounding, school affiliated social media handles, whether that's TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, anything of the sort. We're going to do some work this summer and get this cleaned up.
What do you mean we're not going to adopt the policy?
No. We will adopt the policy as written, but what we will do, if you look at, for example, the B, school affiliated school media use, any social media account which purports to be the official account of the school district, Bulldog Wrestling, we've got Warrior Shop, we've got several different handles that are used that appear to be official sites, making sure that they are school related and not personal, or that you have something that specifically says this is a personal site and not affiliated with the district.
So you're going to work to come into compliance with
Correct.
the policy this
Yep.
summer? Okay, got it.
Exactly. 4064, transporting students in employee vehicles. There were two options here. We went option 2. School employees shall not use their personal vehicle to transport students except for those students who reside in the employee's own household, or if an emergency exists. If an emergency occurs, the employee will contact the administration, parents whenever practicable, before providing the emergency transportation. It's clean, it's easy to administer. 4027, part-time certificated employees. You'll see a footnote down here. I did not clean up that footnote on purpose. What was suggested from legal was, instead of trying to fit this somewhere within a policy, have that included within the negotiated agreement. It's referenced in negotiated agreements specifically with insurance, but not on the salary schedule. Meaning, so if you're a 0.5 FTE employee, you would get 50% salary, 50% insurance benefit. Those numbers, having that specifically outlined in negotiated agreement is probably more applicable and better suited than having the footnote within the policy. I am planning on revisiting with the committee, but that does exist there. 4043, professional boundaries. If you we'll go down to the bottom of page 2. The highlighted parts, to me, were confusing. There was a preferred method and then a allowed method. I talked to legal a little bit, and we're just going to say employees may use email accounts, Remind, the student information system, and in-person interactions to communicate with students. And we're going to eliminate the rest of it. Any headaches or questions there? Okay. 4056, resignation of certificated staff. We're going to utilize the top paragraph. We are going to ratchet down what that date is. Right now in policy, the date is May 1st. Statutorily, April 15th is the date in which we have the ability to non-renew any teacher. A lot of districts are starting to go to March 15th. We can't go any earlier than March 15th. On statutory, 79.829. It cannot be earlier than March 15th. So we have between March 15th and April 15th, essentially is our window. The problem with putting just March 15th and leaving it alone is if March 15th falls on a Saturday or Sunday, then you run into potential hiccups because we've got to put out a document to teachers, to have teachers sign that document. And if we say March 15th here, but document can't be turned in until March 17th, because we know we can't go before March 15th, then your policy doesn't line up to what you're trying to do, and the teacher has potentially a grievance if we don't align to that. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? We can't go earlier than the 15th. So if the 15th is on Saturday, and we say it's due March 14th, we're in violation of statute. However, if we just put March 15th in our policy, it can't be due before March 17th. Now we're violating our own policy.
Can't you just say the later of March 15th or the first business day following March 15th?
We can, if we put out those papers at that exact time. The way that legal had communicated it was, if we leave it the way that they have written in paragraph 1, then you are not going to trip over yourself in policy if, heaven forbid, I forget one day to have Chris put those papers out, and all of a sudden it becomes March 18th instead of March 17th or something like that. We definitely can put the 15th or the next business day following. This was what legal had strongly suggested. Because I'd thrown out just March 15th and leave it alone. Shot that down pretty quick. We can come back to that as committee if you want. We revisit
It seems like we're overthinking that.
a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll send it back to you guys for suggestions. Last one I have on here, 4063, extra duty. We actually make it really simple. I don't know if it's simple for Chris, but it's simple in policy. With extra duty on page 1, the highlighted portion just gets struck. The green highlight is what will be in its place. Certificated employees will be paid during the month's service, which the activity occurs, which makes a ton of sense because if you're paying teachers and you prorate it over 12 months, and all of a sudden a teacher is let go or leaves for whatever reason, but they have a track contract, we've already started paying them for those track services without those being provided. At the bottom with extended contract days, we went option 1 in both instances. Option 1, it's got to be done before the start of the next school year, and those extended contract days paid over the 12 equal installments. a lot of reading, a lot of crossed eyes by the time we get through it, but it is gonna be worth it when we're done. It should be streamlined and it should be consistent. I appreciate your work. These policies will come back next month for, call it rough adoption.
Any other questions on 4,000 search policies?
If I have a couple of questions on some of the things, could I email the committee then? Is that what I would do?
Email me,
Okay,
and then I will
Okay.
forward to the committee.
okay.
That way, there's no open meetings violation.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yep. Any current questions?
Administrative reports. Everybody had one attached. Any questions on any of the reports?
I'm gonna hit on mine real quick if I can. Yep. And the only thing I'm gonna talk about is legislative bills. It's an interesting session. It seems like a little bit of a combative session. To begin with, there was a small group of senators that was working to filibuster anything and everything and got into a halt because of an issue with some of the bills that were proposed. Kind of what happened is midstream, they changed the rules and started limiting filibusters, amendments, motions, time for debate to try to move this process along to get some things done. Because they do have a minimum that they have to accomplish within any session. However, on the backside of that, what happened is after they condensed any filibuster effort, they started creating what are called Christmas tree bills, which are just taking, for lack of a better term, random bills, combining them together into one bill, and just start hanging stuff on it, and then passing that one bill when really it has 20 different purposes. The speaker said that that was allowable this session as long as none of the bills were, what was your word I used this morning, Josh? Do you remember that? Not confrontational.
Controversial.
Controversial.
Yeah.
As long as they're not controversial, you can attach them. What's the definition of controversial? And isn't everything at this point in education controversial? At any rate, what you have in front of you, these LB 385 started as a teacher recruitment and retention bill. It has now had parental involvement, guidance for a moment of silence, sped expenditures, Nebraska Opportunity Act, part-time enrollment of students in their participation in activities, change of duties for the school security director of the state, alternative certificates, textbook loan, residency for enrollment for post-secondary education, which didn't have anything to do with what was up there previously, provisions related to the University of Nebraska, limits on superintendent pay, certain youth organizations to provide information. All of that has been thrown into one bill. Now there's pieces of it, like 800 I don't think will go on the superintendent pay. Really, it's only going to impact Omaha, Lincoln, Millard, Papillion, those type of schools. It doesn't sound like the governor is going to send that. But the other interesting part of this is those bills that I have starred, 71, 141, 585, 647, 698, 805, they've already been advanced to general file. So they've already passed the committee round, yet the committee kind of pulled them back in and then threw them all into one bill. Same thing with 705. You've got a group of things that really don't have any interaction with each other than they're education based, but yet they're located in the same bill. I don't know how this goes. I don't know how you break it out. It's a great question. If I had answers, I could tell you, but I just wanted you guys aware that this is how they're trying to push through legislation after kind of dragging it to a halt the first half. If you have any questions or you want more details, please let me know.
Any current questions? Communications.
There's just one on here, special education, ESU2 contract. This is the amount that we pay ESU2 on a yearly basis. We need to pick up just a touch of psych time for next year at .1. We have early childhood with some advisement, and then we have vision, and we have LMHP, which is part of a grant that we're not paying anything for. So the total that's going to ESU minus independent school is there at the bottom. Just information for you. No.
We are up to audience comments. We usually set aside 30 minutes. Limited participants tonight, so there might be a little leeway from the 3 minutes if need be. Come on up. First one, when you come up, state your name, where you live, let us know what you got.
Okay, can I jump in real quick? I forgot a part.
Yep.
I just saw Kyle sitting here. So we're trying to figure out a sound system that's gonna work and make sense. We think we found an answer that aesthetically it's gonna look horrible, but it should work. We're gonna give it a shot. It's gonna run like $600. If we do anything more advanced, wireless speakers or any of that, you're getting into the thousands of dollars for.
We just had this on for
Yeah, we had talked about that too. So, working on it.
Here you fine.
Josh didn't skip you, did you have something to add?
I always have things to add, but
He's down on the list.
per Rule 10, as part of the multiculturalism piece is attached to my board report. There's no action to take, but per Rule 10, it's something that I need to share with you. Just that on any time we're making any decisions, curriculum or otherwise, we always consider multiculturalism and take that into account when we're making those decisions. So just more of a formality.
All right, we're going back to public comment. Anybody have public comment? Okay. Moving on to the board committee reports. Of course, policy committee met. That was a good time. Head Start has not met. I believe they have a meeting coming up in Thursday. Any other committees met? Foundation. Moving on. Action items, curriculum.
First, you'll see their math standards were revised and adopted by the state board September 2nd, 2022. We have, as a school district, one school year to act upon that. Again, kind of generally formality, I will talk you through the process. Mrs. Stukenholz actually was a part of the process at the state level with writing standards. So if she wanted to share, I just sent over and told her that she could broadly do that. But board policy dictates that we do adopt the content level state standards. So I did include some other information there as well as the standards, but our core emphasis in math continues to be three things: to develop procedural fluency, conceptual understanding, and then help students get to a place where they can apply that knowledge in new situations. So.
What's the difference between what we have today and this?
And the question was, what's the difference between the 2015 and 2022? So there are some changes, and I don't know, Judy, if you want to speak, you certainly can about K2.
About the changes?
Yeah.
Well, actually, there were not, I worked on K1-2 standards. We did not have a lot of changes in standards. We rearranged a few things. One thing to note, though, is that the standards are not written to someone's curriculum. And so a lot of times, some of the things that are written into the standards are not contained in our curriculum, and we have to find other ways to teach those and meet those standards. So, and that happens at every school. So we as we were putting these together, we really did look at what was the continuum going to look like from kindergarten, first and second grade, and then our group worked with third, fourth, and fifth grade. They worked on to the next group to just make sure that there was a continuum that had been lacking in the last few times that they had written standards. So that if you're teaching, I'll just make an example because this was something that had not been taught in kindergarten and first grade or had not been in the standards. We've been teaching it, it wasn't part of the standards. Money, for instance. So we didn't have any standard that said anything about money. In kindergarten, there was very little in first grade, and then in second grade, they were supposed to be adding together all of these coins and making, more than $1 and, doing all of this stuff with money when they hadn't had any experience that was from the standards. So then we added in a standard that started it at kindergarten on the first level, moved it up to second grade, the next level, kindergarten, first and second grade. We don't have anything in our curriculum that teaches money. So that's just one example of something that we'll have to do to pull in from somewhere else, from other things that we've used before. So that's kind of how the standards were changed, because we saw that there was a big gap between a lot of grade levels on where it started or what was expected when nothing had been pre-taught. So they're not standards that are mastery standards necessarily, they're a continuum standard. And I guess that's how I would phrase those, is that they're not a mastery at every grade level. It's a continuum of learning. If that makes any sense to anyone.
Yeah, at the upper level, you'll see more focus on data analysis. Or in the old standards, there were several grade levels where it was kind of taught at the early grades. If you flip a coin, there's an odds of heads or tails. Some of those types of things, or the likelihood of 0 or 1 of something occurring. And then for several grades in the upper elementary, it just was not standard at all. So they've gone back and added a bit more of that to create, like Judy said, more of that cohesion and flow through all. There's not, staff have had them since October, September, at the late September, and I've looked at them. I haven't heard any major concerns from them. Generally, the changes are, like Judy said, there's a lot of language cleanup, I think, or changes, just so people are all hopefully saying the same thing when they're using those same mathematical terms.
So parents won't necessarily notice much from this curriculum?
I would not anticipate.
I would say probably.
So on that, the recommendation, if it needs to be an official recommendation, would be to adopt the 2022 MB math standards, state math standards.
2023 math standards.
They would be 2022, it's a 2022, 23, but 2022 version.
So like the Eureka that we just approved on was that used this year, or was that for New Year?
It's already in place. Yeah, we have two more years of our current materials, and then we'll go through that review and revision process again. When I first came in, we were in the middle of just to give some context. So generally, materials purchase, obviously, the more years that you purchase, the greater the price breaks. So 5 and 7 year, 5, 6, 7 years generally standard, or something we consider. We would obviously go shorter if need be, but old math standards were 2015-16, and we were in the middle. We were in 2017-18. We were in the middle of a 7 year. So when the new standards came out last time, we still had 4 more years with our old materials. It makes it really challenging to navigate. If there's changes, fortunately now there's not a lot, but sometimes there are pretty hefty shifts. And if our material. If we don't have the ability to make those decisions at that time, it makes it a lot harder. So we did a 5-year adoption list. Another 5-year will put us right back on track with the 7-year state cycle. And for future ones down the road, we can be a bit more efficient with that. Because it's a heavy load on the teachers to oftentimes change materials, yeah. But those are all current, so,
So last year was the first year of this new
yeah.
Eureka map? How's that going?
It's going well so far.
What's that?
The Eureka math.
Well, we're doing the next level of Eureka Math called Eureka Squared, and it is much better. It's much more student-friendly, I guess I would
It
say.
aligns more. with
I'm just asking because I tried to help my 3rd grade granddaughter, and then it was Common Core math. I mean, it was, and I know they kind of got away from that, now it's back.
Yeah, the
So,
state standards, even though they're Nebraska state standards, would be more aligned, I would say, to what we knew, I don't know how many years ago, that was 10 years ago, Common Core
Right.
thoughts. The little board info handout that I put out there is, and we've had this conversation, grade level departments, is our focus is that they have procedural fluency mathematically, whether that's the algorithm or some other method. But once they're efficient and can, at a point where they're understanding and can explain that, then we want them to be as efficient as possible. We don't want to continue to teach 7 or 8 additional strategies when we already know that who have this. So for some students, additional strategies help, so that we're making sure, giving opportunities for all students to, access math. And algebra readiness is really the goal. I mean, we want our kids to be algebra ready so that they can have success in post-secondary ventures, whatever they decide to do. I would also tell any grandparents and parents to just help them the way you know best how, okay? And then that is absolutely not going to hurt.
Yeah, so Josh did tell me.
Absolutely not.
We met with Josh that because I couldn't help Josh
Because
today.
if you just help them the way that you know how, again, it's there's not going to be any headbutting, there's not going to be any, this is the only right way, because from a math standpoint, there's lots of it.
right,
So, yeah.
Any other questions for Josh? Motion to adopt those set standards. Second. Any further discussion?
Yeah. Explain to me something. Big words I'm not great at. So reason, this is for first grade. Reason, quantum.
quantitative.
And abstractly and consider the reason of others.
So
Tell me what that means.
So those are not things that the students will ever see or hear. So those are called the mathematical processes. So there used to be eight. There used to be 8, they've trimmed it down to 5. So quantitatively would mean purely numeric, from a numerical standpoint, right? So algorithm, adding and subtracting, and I don't have it right here in front of me.
So why wouldn't you just say that? Yeah.
So
Simple times table. Simple
They're all
division.
doctors.
I know, I just,
I-
goodness, they're not. Man,
I might heartily agree with you with some of those things. Sometimes we obviously make things sound a lot more fancy than maybe what they need to be. But so when you say reason quantitatively and abstractly and consider the reasoning of others, we want them to be able to take the numbers, make sense of the numbers. We want them to be able to also, kind of think of things in maybe ways outside of a linear equation or something from point A to point B, and then also just be, accepting of, somebody else might have a different way of solving it. So then we can talk about that, right? I think a lot of the great math, when we're interacting with math at the end of the day, well, there's a lot of great stuff that comes from just discussion. How do we get there? How did you solve that? To see kids really excited about math, that's hopefully the goal, and not the opposite end of, oh my goodness, I have to do math, or hopefully we can try to get away from that. My parents weren't any good at math, so I'm not any good at
discussion? Chris?
Renee?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Di?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
5.2, builder's risk insurance coverage.
Okay, so I'm working with MMA and Spro. Had them go through, look at several vendors, several options. The one that was recommended would be to go through Hanover as the direct provider for our builder's risk, which we have to carry. The reason this one was most intriguing was, one, it was the least expensive. Two, it had comparable coverage. But three, it is while the amount here is listed as $55,948, it's prorated over 24 months. So at the time that that policy is implemented, which is probably another month to 3 months away, depending on when they get materials here on site, that is when that policy will be in effect. When we are done with construction, that policy ends. So if there is a balance remaining, that just disappears. We're not going to pay the balance up front. We're going to pay it on a monthly basis. Right now, they're planning on, I think, 17 months of work. It's probably going to cost something closer to $39,644, but the policy itself is built for 2 years. If for some reason we would go beyond that, then we would have to come back and amend and add something to it. But the really nice thing is that we can cut this thing down because we're not probably going to be building for 2 years.
Brandon, did you pull, I know at one point in time MCL priced builders, them carrying the builder's risk coverage. Did you by any chance pull that up to see what their number was?
What I did is I had Dan communicate directly with MCL, and I don't remember the number off the top of my head. It was something in the high 30, low 40 range that they said they would go this direction as opposed to them because we would save money. I had Dan talk specifically to MCL about the whole deal.
What do you mean you'd save money?
It would be more expensive for them to carry it than for us. But I don't have that number in front of me. Yeah, like I said, I don't know the specifics. I let them communicate directly because they know what they were saying. So the recommendation would be to approve the bid from MMA for builder's risk coverage for an amount not to exceed $55,940 if this direction goes well.
You said the timeline is 17 months from when we get.
The approximate timeline, if this plays out, would be, you know, if we start this thing in, what is it? June, it might go to 17 months is the math that Dan had figured. In reality, the number is $2,332 per month, times whatever months.
Is there a motion to approve the bid from MMA? Builder's risk insurance.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Chris?
Renee? Yes. Brett?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Mike?
Abstain.
Di?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Policy adoption, first series, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000.
They're just attached for board reference, we're not going through them. The one thing that I do want to highlight is you will not see policy 3012 included in this. That's going to come separate, that's the school meal that we are still working on to find the wording that most appropriately fits what we're trying to accomplish. Everything else will be included in here. There are policies that we're recommending to adopt. What we will do is you would move to adopt these, but they won't become active until there's a resolution by the board sometime later this year, saying all policies through KSB, they have the resolution written already for me, but all policies through KSB that you've been working on, that you've adopted to this point, are in force on this date.
discussion?
I just had some questions on some of them.
Okay.
One of them was 2005 on like conflict of interest with board members with
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, that's something we're
That,
working through.
okay, that may have an issue there.
Yeah.
Also, there was a committee I'm on, it's a curriculum, Americanism or something like that,
Right.
I'm on. And the policy says there's 3 and that we're supposed to be having 2 meetings a year.
Yep.
Has that
Which
been happening?
We will happen. What we will do is probably this summer, we will have one of them as part of the board meeting with public comment, public hearing, whatever that states. We'll have another one, Josh's gonna have some curriculum stuff, that will be happening.
So what was in the past?
In the past, it was not Americanism, was it just curriculum? I was thinking there was something else, because it was Brett and Ron.
And how often did they meet?
Once a year, once every, twice a year, once a year. Is that what it was?
That's required by statute, I think, right?
Yeah, with the,
What do they actually do?
with the Americanism piece.
That's what I'm just asking.
Right.
That's what I thought, is there a file or something?
Yeah.
That's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Any other time? Come in, we'll
I
visit.
will, okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I guess one question I have is why are we kind of adopting these now and not just waiting until we've gotten through all of them and just adopt the new policies all at one
Given, this is my interpretation. One, because this is the process Bobby suggested, but for me, I think it would be really difficult for us to, especially like the policy committee, we've spent a ton of time on these policies. All these 2000s, if we put these on the shelf and then wait until like July to go back and approve them, are we really going to remember what we did if there's any sort of discussion with the board members that are part of the committee to be able to inform that decision?
So the thought is that once we approve these, we aren't going to go back and modify them anymore.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Chris?
Alex,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Di.
No.
Facility projects update.
Couple bullets here and then we got some. Had our OAC meeting, owner architect construction manager meeting this afternoon. Looks like foundations starting to be worked sometime around May 22nd. Still building materials coming in somewhere around the 3rd week of July. The 5-week look ahead, I will scan and share. Not going to be anything profound there. It's still dirt work, electrical prep, some of that stuff. I did talk to Brian. He is planning on coming in next month because he's anticipating next month that 5-week look ahead gets a little bit longer, a little bit more information on it. That way, if you guys have any questions or looking at the schedule further out than 5 weeks, he's here to share. That's all I've got for you.
My question remains how we're going to manage this project. I know last month we talked about, do we bring in, and everybody has a different term, project manager, owner's rep, whatever you want to call it. I think you were going to do some follow-up with a guy in Fremont, if I remember. Have you done that to talk about reviewing pay-ups?
Yeah, it's something he absolutely can do.
Has he given us a number?
I don't have a hard number from him.
Is he able to give us a ballpark?
I will be able to get that for you. I tried to contact him again today and we couldn't connect. So I will work on that again tomorrow and I can send that email out.
You just couldn't get a hold of this last month? What's
No, today.
I know we've got a month where we talked about doing this, we're sitting here, yeah, was he giving you, a number? I mean, have we talked about a number before to him, about a cost? To look-
He when I talked to him, and maybe that's my error, I didn't realize that we were moving forward with this. When I talked to him before, he had recommended more of an hourly basis than a contracted sum. Now, I'm sure he could calculate that into an amount not to exceed, but kind of what he's done with other districts is he's come in on an hourly amount, which actually saves the district money.
What districts does he work in?
He was employed by Fremont Public Schools for I don't know how many years.
What other?
He's been involved, I believe, at Takema Herman. Where did he tell me? He's back at Fremont now, not directly with the district, but as a contracted employee. And there's one other one that I know he's worked for, maybe. I can get the name for you.
And I've gotten the name of somebody who may potentially consider it. No one has contacted him. He's a retired school facilities guy, has overseen a lot of construction. It might make some sense to do that as well. And here, it remains my concern, there is such an investment of time if we want to truly dig in on every pay application that, I mean, that's almost another half-time job for you. And or a committee of the board. And I frankly just don't have the time to commit to that because I know how many hours is involved. I don't know if anyone else is inclined to form a committee and go through these every month. And then I also think that we need to figure out what the change order process is going to look like. Because right now, the way the contract reads, you're our rep. You have the authority to approve change orders. But I have to imagine we as a board want to have some limits on that, just for your protection and for our protection, to say, and or can we designate the committee? Because with renovation, they could say to you, we need this change order because we ran into this concealed condition and we can't move forward. The project can't move forward until you sign off on this.
Right.
Well, we can't wait 30 days for that. So I feel like we just really need to nail down how are we going to manage this project to be efficient and smart with our money and make sure everyone's following the contract, but yet they deliver what they promised to deliver. And I don't feel like we've ever gotten to that point as a board. And I think we're okay now because they're just moving some dirt. Right, so it's going to be a pretty simple pay application. I think we could probably figure out how to get that. And then I think the other question, and this goes to the BBH, we've approved that contract, so technically, it's my understanding, their invoices don't have to come before the board for approval, as long as we remain under the contract limit. But do we want it to come before the board? Just to ensure if anyone's inclined to say, okay, does that match what the contract terms say? Is this on the same timeline that we all agreed upon? I don't know that that should just fall on your shoulders to have to do that. So I guess it's as much a question about how much do we want to be involved? What do we want to see? Do we want to look at those before they get paid on a monthly basis? And what other experts do we want to bring in to make sure that this is done right? I don't know that we need them for all the things that gentleman from Fremont said. You don't need them every day. But there's a few things that I think we would probably be well served and save ourselves money in the long run.
Every time money's transferred, moving, we should be aware of what that money's being transferred, and what the amount is, and make sure it matches that every time. That's the money. That tells you what we're paying. So I would agree. I think somebody doing that type of stuff, when they send in an invoice to be paid, whoever it is, the committee, I'm with you though, I don't think none of us have the time to do that. If we have a representative that can say to our committee, hey, this doesn't look right, this doesn't match up with then we then go to MCL or BBH and say, what's going on? This is not even close. You're overcharged, why? I think that's a good idea. we've talked about before about this, I think this is the route we should go. I think you're right. We don't need him to do some figure every day.
No.
So my thought is that we've got this committee. This committee could sort through the various names that we're looking at, iron out the numbers, make a recommendation to the board at the next meeting. You know, 2 or 3 that the board can pick from, and then
It takes stuff off Brandon's plate.
I like
We
that.
take ownership of it because now it's our recommendation we're giving to the board, not Brandon giving us a recommendation. So I think that's a good idea.
Is a month from now too late? Or was it
I don't think so.
Okay, so-
I earlier thought it was, but I don't think so. I
Not
think-
based on the 5-week look ahead, they just aren't
I-
doing that much stuff.
Correct. I would say we won't see our first pay app until the 1st of May. So it will be ready for the May board meeting. But at that point in time, you're talking about dirt work and preparatory type stuff as opposed to any sort of construction and such.
So probably mobilization, some general conditions, some supervision, but it's not gonna be, you know, a 6-page line by line. Otherwise, I think we'll be okay.
So are we going to advertise for something, or are we just gonna go on the whole, you know, the facility manager, Jim? Are we looking, I mean, how do you wanna approach this?
Do we have to, if this is a professional, I think this would qualify as a professional service.
I would say we are fine if you want me to collect a few options and put that before the committee. Here's what people have used in the past. I can absolutely do that. I don't think it's something that we have to print from.
Do we know how some other schools, Brett, maybe you have talked to a few people who have done projects like this. Are they doing that? Are they hiring someone, or are they doing it in-house?
Some have, some haven't, some, one of the supers, they work with their administrative business officer.
Business.
Other than Wonder Woman. And a small subcommittee, and they look at all the payouts, so superintendent, Chris, and a couple of board members look at all of them. He said there were roughly 45 meetings so far, they're not done yet. And
How many?
2 to 3 hours.
45.
And they're 2 to 3 hours a meeting. So it's a commitment, it's a major commitment.
How big is the project?
60 minutes.
I mean, that's just, that totally takes away from what we want our superintendent, what he has to do.
It's a commitment, it's,
Yeah. It's too much.
I like the idea of the third party, the middle person, the guy from Free Management. Everybody seemed to be fairly comfortable as long as he's got a decent enough resume of jobs he's performed in the past. As long as the number comes in and something that's not grossly too big.
I think we're probably, we're looking at a decent chunk anyways. I would think so. I guess it's not gonna be, it's gonna surprise me, whatever it is, on the high side, I'm sure. But it makes me feel much more comfortable having somebody, a third party take a look at this stuff than me. No offense to anybody else, any of us.
Yeah, I mean, let's get numbers,
Yeah.
right? We don't know what the numbers gonna be. So let's get numbers.
So do we want, you said the committee grab some names, recommendations?
Well, Brandon can give us a name,
Yeah.
they can reach out to us, and we can visit with them. We can visit, and then have them all 3 at once, if we individually visit with them, and then could be back together, to speed the process, up, instead of trying to get a meeting to meet with now, and just, I mean, there's a lot, you think about it, there's a lot of large contractors, that guys that just retired that were CFOs, you know, head of, their accountants type, that's what all they've done. I think you're gonna find there might be some more people that we, just what we're thinking now, that might be a fit for this in our own community.
Yeah, so.
And who has our best interest in our own people, our own community. So don't just think of Fremont, of a facility manager, think outside the box a little bit, because there are probably some guys in this community that can do it, and have done it, just haven't ever advertised it, that's what they did.
And it doesn't have to be a CFO.
No.
A project manager, that's what they do, is deal with the numbers. So, yeah, if anyone knows anyone,
I've got one in mind. I'll reach
then
out.
I think those are the people we start with.
because I can reach out to schools and I can reach out to the projects. I'm not gonna have the totality of the list.
Right.
There's something I need to add to it, just say the word.
And then I think, so then the other side of this is that change order piece. What do we want to do there to make sure that we don't hold up a project waiting for a meeting? Is there comfortable having it go before the committee before it has time to come before the full board? Do we want to authorize Brandon up to some amount? Do we want to take that off of Brandon?
I think you would
and
take
put
that
it
off
on the
Brandon.
committee?
I would say the committee would be, take it off him, because you're putting him up again instead of setting him up to fail. He
That's what I
doesn't,
worry about.
if it's us, it's on us.
Right. Right, and then we answer to our constituents.
Well, and then how would we, okay, so we would make a recommendation, say, we would get it together and say, this looks good. Then Brandon, we send it to Brandon, and Brandon says it's the entire board. Correct? On a change order, so we're not holding it up?
No, and tell me if I'm wrong, my interpretation would be, it goes to the committee says yes, I go back to MCL and say go.
Yeah, and that's how it would have to, because you can't go and have the whole committee weigh in on something and take action outside of the public meeting. We can't
Yeah,
do
but
that.
can individuals respond to the committee by themselves?
That becomes,
That's-
that effectively is making decisions outside of a public meeting, and we can't do it. So, it's either the committee, it's Brandon, or it's we have to hold all change orders until the next regular meeting, or we have to continually schedule special meetings. And those are really our four options.
So my thought is that, I don't know what the number would be, but set a maximum number for a change order that would have to go up to the board level before the work can be done. And anything less than that amount could be approved by the committee, as long as they're comfortable with it, and then be ratified by the board later.
Yeah.
As the project
I like it.
proceeds. I don't know what that number would be though.
What's that number though?
Yeah,
That's-
what is
is
it?
that-
I don't know,
So
but it can't be small, I will say,
Right.
because.
I reached out a couple places. One of them that I did get to talk to for a little bit, in the middle of a project, said change orders, so the way that they're doing it is, it's on the superintendent that reports back to the school board, and then they have, whether it's monthly or quarterly meetings, to run through the entire spreadsheet so they can see here's where the change orders were. But the number they said was somewhere between $5,000 and $25,000 would cover almost all of their change orders. 25 would be the top end,
Individually,
individual change order.
but no limit on the
I
aggregate.
did not get an aggregate number,
Yeah, see,
which,
yeah,
that's a lot.
it is a lot.
So maybe maybe 10,000 would be that threshold where the committee can approve that, maybe above 10,000. You either have to call a special meeting.
Was that a renovation or was that a new construction?
It's new construction.
Completely different ballgame. They could run into
Right.
one concealed condition, it's 150,000, otherwise we're sitting here until you can advertise for a special meeting. That's my only concern is, and if we have to stop construction, that's additional cost because now they can claim delay damages. So,
To me, it sounds like the best alternative is to go through the committee. The committee makes the final decision, we say, yeah, we know, they're not holding up. We still all would have, the three of us on the committee would have best interest of the taxpayer anyway.
and I think Brandon would want to notify the whole board.
Correct.
So everyone's aware.
Where?
And certainly people could weigh in with Brandon, but it would still have to be the decision of the committee. And then at the next board meeting, we just simply would have to adjust if there's something that's out of line, I think.
I'm good with it.
At what number?
The remodel is the part that's tough
Yeah.
to
you, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Are you suggesting the committee has the ability to approve any change order, period, or the committee?
We have to have a number.
A set
Up
number,
to-
okay.
I-
Okay,
yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
Not to exceed 50,000 or 25,000 as an aggregate. I think that has to be a number we have to make sure, not per change order, because that change order could be 150,000. So that's what I'm saying, why don't we just change to an aggregate, not to exceed this 50,000 or whatever.
And again, we can try it.
And then
The first time we run into something,
if we don't like it, we change it. Next meeting, we
we're
change
gonna
it.
have to call a special meeting.
So if we say we set that at just 50,000, for argument's sake, and we get a $75,000 change order, and we have to, we hold off, we come to the next school board meeting, it's 3 weeks later, or 10 days later for a special meeting, whatever, and now we've lost time, and everything else we're at, and we're losing 25,000 more. We're really up to it.
So you're thinking, Alex, just let the committee have control of it, and there's no holding anybody back.
Yeah, it's
Giving us a lot.
talking myself that direction, but it puts a lot of pressure on it. I'm
Not pressure, but we're
comfortable
making
with it. Yeah,
decisions
yeah,
on it.
nobody's gonna make
Where
it.
3 of you will not have any input.
Yeah.
There's that, well, you'll have the opportunity
At the next board
at the
meeting.
next board meeting.
But we've already made that decision, so.
We've spent the money.
I'd be okay with it. If it's 3 committee members, it just has to be here, so it's not costing us money.
Yeah, I just worry about the time spent.
I agree.
Downtime, pulling the guys offside, back onside.
We have the ability to do an emergency meeting.
Special. Emergency would be emergent circumstances, but most of the time, from the state's perspective, that's going to be something natural disaster related.
We can't, nothing outside of natural disaster.
Not that it's been approved anytime recently.
So maybe we do a combination of dollar amount and urgency, and if it's going to cause a stop of work, then the committee does it, or we do a special meeting. If it's not going to cause a stop of work, then it's $20,000 or something.
It is not an emergency, we can wait for the next meeting, take care of it. If it's an emergency where they're saying, hey, you hold this up, it's gonna do, it's a domino effect, it's gonna cost you a lot more money than this change. I'm good with
As
that.
long as MCL and PH are listening right now and everything.
Yeah, everything's gonna stop the job.
You can't hear us anyway, so we're good.
I think they're good partners
Yeah,
too.
I do.
So where did we end? On an emergency, is there any limit if it is a threatened work stoppage?
Yeah, I mean, we could put a much higher limit maybe for something like that, but, I don't know, maybe.
I would say no limit. I think we're all gonna,
I mean, what, are we gonna come back, say it's $150,000, are we gonna come back and say, oh, just shut everything down, we're done, we're not gonna stop?
That's the hard
But-
reality of renovation.
it is, but if we know that if we don't act on this today, it's gonna do these things, they're gonna tell us, it could cost us a hell of a lot more. I don't wanna do that, guys, because here's the deal, the faster we get done, the better it is for everybody.
But there are scenarios where potentially they come back and say, we hadn't anticipated this, and maybe we have to do some redesign because the cost is just out of line.
But that's emergency, that's the emergency type deals, we have a special
Yes.
meeting, we get together.
Absolutely.
I'm
Just
totally
saying,
on.
there are some
Right.
circumstances where we may have to stop, but
Because there could be options A, B, and C, and A isn't too bad, and C is ridiculously
Yeah.
expensive as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm all, that's a good idea, I like it. You go with it?
Yeah.
Renee, you go with it?
Yeah.
Aye. Brad?
Okay, so help me wordsmith this thing.
Let the-
I'm gonna try.
The board is directing, is the way that we will word it.
Building committee.
Yep.
And let the attorneys handle this.
What I have, just rough notes, if work stoppage is a concern, it's a committee decision. If not a threat of work stoppage, the limit for committee decision is X dollars. What is that dollar?
non-emergency number?
Isn't that what we talked, am I wrong?
25.
I would say
25.
25.
Okay.
25. Bob, you good with that? Is that what you said earlier?
And then anything
I was
above that, I
all
think is
over the
one of
place.
two things. We either have to call a special meeting, or if it can wait without delaying progress, then we just
Next meeting,
bring it
the
before
agenda, good.
regular meeting.
Yep, got it, okay. We'll put that together. I got it, Chris.
Okay.
So do we need a motion to that effect?
I think you need a motion,
Because you guys are the ones that are gonna be making that decision, so you're gonna know that.
Yeah, so the board has to
Yeah,
I think you need to move
delegate
to,
that.
So I'll make the motion, read it right.
okay, designated the building committee as a decision maker when it comes to change orders. If work stoppage is a concern, the committee can make that decision on the spot. If it's not emergent in nature, the limit is $25,000. If it exceeds $25,000, it will be addressed in a special meeting or the next regular board meeting.
That's my motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Chris?
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Brett,
Yep.
Bob.
Yes.
And then Brandon, just for the sake of us having the opportunity to look, can you send us BBH's bills as well, so we can just take a look at those?
The ones we've already paid or going forward.
I would say going forward. I mean, if anyone wants copies of the past ones, certainly you can request those.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay, we have personnel resignations / hirings, a couple resignations, and replacement of Brandon.
2 resignations, Holly Klein in Head Start, Kim Forbes, High School Math. At this time, we're not planning on replacing Holly's position. We're going to do some reallocation. Full disclosure, I am a little nervous about the upper level math position. Pool is very, very thin. There's other schools out there trying to hire math teachers. I don't know if we're going to have to consolidate for a year because we're beyond April 15th at this point. Some of them have absent. We will get something figured out.
Is there any way you can consider if we could find somebody to help us? Or should definitely just help us?
I haven't broached that yet, but I will.
I think we should.
I wanted to see if we could find somebody first.
What is
Which-
consolidating?
Meaning instead of 4 sections, maybe we've got to go 3 sections to open up a teacher for extra availability on a different section of math. Taking, essentially, because we have shared staff, middle school and high school, potentially consolidating a section or multiple sections. Those classes a little bigger, which is an ideal for students, but it's either that or you don't offer any upper level math.
Do you have the ability to give anyone who has the math
We're working through some options.
and moving some staff around potentially?
We're working through those options.
Very good. We like options.
Yeah. Real quick, I'll hit on the other one, Megan Kumpla. She will be replacing Pam Trutman down at St. Wentz in that title position. It's a .175, .25
125.
FTE. That was something that Josh worked with Mr. Weiss and St. Wentz
And
staff
Pam,
on.
we've been talking through this for a while.
Yeah, she's still a teacher. She's still a teacher at St. Wentz, right?
She's gonna move into a different role this year, so this was the
Oh,
perfect
okay.
time for, this was like the perfect time for that.
Yes.
Yeah. So you'll have 2 different motions that you have to address. First is the accepting of the resignations, and the other is the approval of the hire. Technically, Megan's .25 runs through our system, so we do have to approve that here.
So what happens if we don't approve, can we resign?
Well, then you could.
I think you tried that with.
I did.
Renee.
And we tried to, this is great.
Now,
Let's try something.
that would be the last option, especially with upper level math. That's really hard to do.
I've got distance learning, lower level math.
We're working through all the options we have.
How many, like high school math teachers,
Yep.
how many periods a day are they teaching the same class? So Mrs. Ford was teaching, what,
If you give me a minute, I can pull it up. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
I guess here's my thought, is you don't have to pull it up, here's my thought or question. If the applicant pool stays dry, and we have to maybe approach Mrs. Ford and say, hey, is this something you would consider doing until we can find somebody? Could it be 2 periods?
Okay, I guess I should ask permission before I ask for forgiveness on this one. I mean, honestly, the next step is to hire somebody part-time, maybe coming in Monday, Wednesday, Friday for a couple periods, as opposed to Monday through Friday, only in the mornings, only in the afternoons. I mean, we're taking every stab at this. Are you guys okay with some sort of setup like that for a year, more of a college schedule structure for that individual
As
than,
long as the kids are getting what they need.
I'm saying, as long as they're good.
Yes,
yeah.
totally.
So,
And I think that would be something I would approach Kim at and say, hey, we can restructure this for 3 days, whatever. Would that be something she would entertain, or somebody else that would say, well, you know what, I think I would go back to 3 days. And they're really good,
Math
hire them.
teacher is tough, and this time
So-
society's really tough.
Kim's got 3 preps.
I think I'm kidding.
I think Knuckles has 4 preps. Who am I missing? Josh? Lumen, thank you. Angie, right now she's at 2 preps and a study hall.
Omar has 1.
Yep.
I think my, speaking for myself, be as creative
Yes.
as you have to be to get us good high school math teachers in this.
Kind of like George Twilling.
I'm telling you. Bring them back.
You think we're kidding or not?
There's no race, the chocolate race.
No race boards anymore, he's good.
I'm just wondering if you said it loud enough for.
I did, we'll get that another look.
Any other questions on the 2 resignations for Megan replacing them?
Is there 2 different motions here?
Need 2. First, the resignations.
I'd like to move to accept the resignations.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
Any further discussion? Chris?
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes. And we need a motion to approve the addition of Megan Cumberland to the staff.
So moved.
Discussion on that? Chris?
Alex,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Just so everybody knows, Ally Klein was really good too.
Yeah.
She's gonna be missed too down there.
Items for next regular meeting. Justin is working on our facilities project. Anything about change orders in Twitter? Is it all encompassing trash?
That's all it is. As long as we have any motions in there.
Okay. Any other items we'll talk about next meeting? Of course, we have policy.
Are we ready to do anything with the baseball contract by then?
I hope so.
Okay.
And I'm not saying about getting our agendas earlier, we talked about getting them earlier, maybe a week before instead of being later. What's the holdup? Tell us why they always take until.
Do you know, I just got 4 bills today. I usually don't get bills until the middle of the month. And it's by the time we get everything we need from everybody else, like, I'm scrambling on Fridays, just trying to get it out on Fridays.
Like some of the stuff like policy review, though, you can't send out a pre-agenda that has stuff you have.
I can send out agenda 2 weeks ahead of time, because I usually have them ready. I just don't have all the documents.
but you'd have a lot of documents in it. I would appreciate that. It's, because I get, when we get on a Friday, I'm not gonna lie, I don't spend a lot, if I have more time to look at it, I'll spend more time to look at it. That's just me, you guys know.
I think that's pretty common practice for boards to get it right.
Well, I think you have to have it within $72.
That normally is something
Seems like we always got it. Yeah, we'd probably get it by Thursday. We would have a meeting to set the agenda the previous week, and then it would come out probably around Wednesday, usually that week. But then there was always changes to it. It was kind of a moving agenda until Friday.
The one thing it seems like we should be able to get a little earlier are the reports from our principals. Because those aren't necessarily targets.
We talked about that today.
Okay. Those seem to be very late.
Monday doesn't sound real. Shoot for Wednesday, Thursday.
Well, you got this one Thursday.
Thursday.
I'll send you one, it just may not have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, see, in my for me,
Send us what you got.
I don't want to, I want to open it once, and I want everything there.
Everything there.
I don't want to have to go back to it. So, but I think we can accommodate all of us.
Yeah, because we'll have different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so specifically last week, we had our hour and a half committee meeting for policy. We had a Wednesday night, 5:30 to 7, so policy would have been in there. We could Wednesday, my school shoot for Thursday. We're just doing a great job.
I still do get a couple bills, like today I got the phone bill, I can't wait another month to pay that. That's why I got it today, because that's a $1,300 bill. They get a little testing, you know, those.
Anything else for the next board meeting? Intriguing, we need to talk about. Motion to adjourn. Second. Got it.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
All approved, say aye.
I think we got to vote.